Here we go. See if I can find a good spot. So what's up, you guys? Hope you all are having a great morning today. It's pretty cold here where I'm at, but sun is shining, so it's a beautiful day. I'll wait till y'all pull up. That I'm gonna tell you guys a story, something that I didn't hear, but that I actually experienced. I don't got no coffee this morning, you guys, but go hit this vape real quick. You know how we do every morning. Gotta have that coffee, gotta have that vape. The morning routine. But yeah, man, I want to share this story with y'all because little did I know this story would pretty much shape the entirety of my life up to this point. And I like to attribute this specific moment in my life when I like truly became a Christian and you know started becoming religious and getting into praying and reading the Bible and going to church. It was the moment, and I've shared this a few times, of when I was doing acid and then I had an encounter with God. And that's what led me to live a Christian life. But really, it was several moments strung along throughout the past that was really shaping me to truly follow Jesus, and, that really carved out my spiritual journey. And this was one of the key moments when I almost took somebody's life. And the person I'm talking about is a person that I've talked about before. Is one of my really close friends. Used to be really close friends. His name was Javi. And so, man, where do I start? Me and Javi, we were really close, and we were so close to the point when I got kicked out of my house. He actually let me stay with him and his family. And after living at his house for probably like maybe 2 or 3 months, we decided, along with another friend of ours, to go and get an apartment together. Now, me and Javi, we had grown up together. We went to high school. We played on the same sports teams. We were really close. I consider him to be my brother. But it's usually the people closest to you that do you the dirtiest, and that type of betrayal, it just always it was heartbreaking. So me and Javi and another one of our friends, we get this apartment. It's a 3 bedroom apartment. We live in there, and we're all like 19, 20 years old at the time. So this apartment we got, it's like the spot. Like, this is where all the parties go down. We pretty much, none of us went to college, so we were like, you know what, we're gonna turn this apartment into a frat house. So it was just nonstop 24 hours, just party, party, party. But after about a month, Javi decided to move his girlfriend in. And like I said, it's always the people closest that you got to watch. Pretty much throughout our whole relationship, I felt like this nigga was always just hating on me, man. And when I analyzed all the situations that we were in, he was really envious of my situation. But now that I look at it, I'm like, yo, we were in the same position in life. We were both working the same job. We had the same level of education. We were from the same city. We knew all the same people. But when he looked at me, he just saw something different. He saw I was, striving to be so much more, and he couldn't do these things. And one of the reasons why is because this nigga had a whole girlfriend and I'm single. I got, people, girls coming over in and out, partying, just living my life free and single. And he can't do that because he's got to live with his girlfriend. Now, the whole time, mind you, he's cheating on his girlfriend, right? He's got so many girls on the side, right? It's ridiculous, but he's got his main girl, and like she was always on his case about like cheating, and always it was always constant fighting and stuff like that. But when he looked at me, it was like, man, this dude is like living a rock star life, and in reality, I was because when I was like 19, 20 years old, I had made up in my mind that I wanted to, in fact, be a rock star. And so that's the whole mindset and attitude I adopted. I'm like, I don't care about what anyone says. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to drink. I'm going to party as much as I want. And there's nothing that anyone can say that's going to change me from doing this. And, from living with him and him seeing my behavior and seeing how much fun I had and just the freedom that I had and just not a care in the world, I think that this really ate him up. And for example, this one weekend, we decided to hang out with some of our other friends that had gone off to college. So we went up to one of their schools. I can't remember if it was like UVA or, uh, Virginia Commonwealth University, but it was one of those big colleges. We go up there, we're hanging out with some of our old friends and we're partying, we're drinking, and then they take us to like this giant courtyard. And for some reason, the tradition here at this university was everyone gets naked and you run from one side of the courtyard to the other side of the courtyard, and everyone is naked. And you have to run around this statue like, three or like five times, and then you run back. It was weird, but it was awesome because it wasn't just like just dudes out there naked, giant sausage party. It was like tons and tons of girls. But because this nigga had a girlfriend, she was like, hell no. Like, you are not doing this. We are not doing this. But you know me, I'm like, hey, let's rock out. Like this sounds like a good time. So, I'm out there, no clothes on. Everybody else is out there. All the girls are out there, just running around naked. We do the whole back and forth thing. And, him and his girl, and, there's a couple other people who didn't participate. They're just sitting there and they're like, judging us, obviously. But he's upset because he's like, this is something that, like, he would do had he had been single. But it's just all of these moments, right, that we're experiencing together, I'm able to like really seize the moment and have as much fun because I'm single, I'm free, and he's not. And also, I'm doing all these other things too, where like I'm making music, and he doesn't have that talent. So again, it was a lot of just like envy, and all of that came to this one boiling point where he tried to I felt like this nigga was trying to kill me, bro. We got into an argument this one night at his birthday party, and he put me in a chokehold. He choked me out, messed up my neck, completely like disfigured my face. And the next day, I woke up and I had no memory of what had just happened. This wasn't like a fight. This was like an intentional, just like yo, I'm trying to hurt you. And my whole thing is like, yo, like with any of my friends, especially like my really close friends that I consider brothers, it's never gotten to a point where like I'm like, yo, I'm trying to fight you, or like, our differences become so big that's like, yo, I have to physically hurt you. But this wasn't the case with him. Like this nigga, he was just a dirty snake. And so this situation happens. I wake up the next day, face completely disfigured, eyes full of blood, neck, all strained. Don't have any really recollection of what transpired last night, the night before. And this goes on for a few days. So like every day I'm like slowly regaining the memories of what happened. I'm like, oh, okay. After like, about like 4 or 5 days, everything comes back into my head and I'm like, wow, this guy really just tried to kill me. Like he tried to literally rip my head off. And I'm a really chill guy, right? I'm not the guy who's like, all into like the drama and fighting and stuff. But at the same time, whenever someone does me dirty, my whole thought process is how can I cut this person in half? And because he had done this to me and like physically like disfigured my face and severely hurt me, in my mind, I'm like, I gotta get my lick back. I gotta get my get back. And so now I'm plotting, like, okay, like he hurt me. What is the best way that I can hurt him? Right now, if I fight him, I'm probably not gonna win this fight because he's way bigger than me, got like a solid like 100 pounds over me, right? That's not gonna be a fight that I'm gonna win unless I take a weapon into it. And then my thought process goes from how can I hurt him to how can I take him out? And so I start contemplating killing this guy. And as I sit with these thoughts and I'm thinking like, okay, like should I do it like this, right? Or, maybe like I should get him alone, while he's like at the crib and like stab him. I was like, okay, maybe this isn't going to go the way that I'm thinking or maybe I should do it like this. And you know, I'm I'm throwing ideas around like should I kill him or should I fight him? Should I just hurt him? But I'm thinking like, all right, if I get the upper hand and like let's say like I hurt him, like I hit him with something and like I knock him out, he's only gonna come back and try to fight me again or try to actually kill me this time. So every thought of hurting him or like knocking him out or severely injuring him, it always comes back to he's gonna try to get me back. So this is kind of useless. I have to go for the jugular, right? I have to take this guy out because all the other ideas, even not like besides the injuring him, I'm like, okay, maybe I can sleep with his girl or maybe I can sleep with his mom, right? I'm like, loosely like throwing around these ideas is like any way that I can, like I'm gonna try and hurt this guy. But I'm like, man, all these ideas suck because if he finds out like that, I slept with his girl or I slept with, someone close to him, he's only gonna try and come back and hurt me. So this is a pretty stupid idea. It's just gonna be going around and around in, a continuous cycle until I end up dead or, he ends up dead. So the the whole thought process shifts to, all right, how am I going to kill him? How am I going to get him alone? Is this actually a good idea? I mean, absolutely not, because if this guy turns up dead, who's going to be the prime suspect? Me. I'm going to jail. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to risk throwing away my freedom because of this. Like, yeah, like, I do want to kill this guy. Like, but I don't wanna go to jail for the rest of my life. I'm like, "Man, this is a dumbass idea." Right? So, like, I'm sitting with these thoughts for a few days, right? I don't, like, just act on impulse, like, "Oh, like, I gotta get my lick back now." Like, I'm really trying to, like, strategically think my way through this plan. But ultimately, as I take all of these thoughts of ending his life to, like, its logical conclusion, it always comes back to I'm gonna ultimately end up throwing my life away and being in prison for a long time. And that's not what I wanted. So I had to take that L and I just decided to let it go and move on because the thing that I actually wanted to do, right, at that moment was to end his life. And I didn't feel like throwing away my life just to end his life. And that decision was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Because now that I think about it, where I'm at in life, the things I've achieved, and all the experiences and things that I've gone through would not have happened if I had decided to act on my impulse or my emotions because of what this person did to me. If I would have, decided to, really kill him and, end his life, I would have ended my life too. And, you know, not that I really care that deeply, but this would have affected so many people. It would have affected his girlfriend, his family, his mom, a whole group of our friends. It just would have been a really bad stain on the entire like community that we were in. But yeah, man, like even though this was a tough decision for me to just let this go, it was literally the best decision. And once I made that decision, I moved out of the apartment, I started, just doing my own thing. But here's the rest of the story is that after I had decided to let this go, we still worked at the same job. So occasionally I would see him. He got wind that, I moved out of the apartment and that, I was pretty much just leaving and wanted nothing to do with him or like any of the people that were like around him. And so one night I'm working at my job, I'm taking out the trash and I keep seeing his car drive back and forth in front of, the restaurant that I was working at. And so, because he had injured me, I always kept a knife in my pocket, like a big blade. I usually always walked around with the blade. And in my head, I'm like, I already decided not to do nothing to this dude. Like, what is this nigga's problem? So I get out to the front. I'm taking the trash out. He pulls up in his car. He hops out, confronts me, starts spazzing on me, right? And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's all you got to say, right? I'm in my head. I'm thinking this, right? In my right hand, right? It's in my pocket. I'm clutching my knife, and mind you, I already said I wasn't gonna do nothing to him. I was just gonna let the situation go and just leave, right? Because I don't feel like going to jail. But now that he continues to press the issue and he wants to like confront me and try to intimidate me, I got my hand on the knife in my pocket and I'm clutching it, right? And it's a knife, like I can just flick it open real quick in my pocket. And I'm saying, if he makes any sudden move, if he takes another step towards me, or if he raises his arm, I'm going to take this knife and I'm putting it in his neck. That was my next move. And in my head, he's talking. I'm not really like hearing nothing that he's saying. I'm just waiting for him to move towards me. But also at the same time, I'm praying to God. I'm saying like in my head, I'm like, God, please don't let me do this. Like, please stop this. Like, I don't want to kill him. I don't want to do this. Like, but if he makes a move, like I'm gonna have to defend myself. I'm not fighting him, right? I'm not I'm not about to wrestle with this dude. Like we're not tussling. Like I'm gonna take this knife and I'm gonna stick it right in his neck just one time. Like that's all I need. And it felt like God was like right there with me in that moment. Like he heard my prayer because like I said, I was looking for him to make just one sudden move, take one step, raise his hand, and he kept his feet planted like in the same position and he didn't move. And then he said what he had to say and then he just got back in his car and he dipped. And from that moment I never talked to him again. But after he left, I felt such a sigh of relief because I was like, man, thank you God. Like I didn't have to do this. And so it came to the point where it was like I wasn't plotting murder anymore. This would have been self-defense, but it would have ended in me having to kill somebody. And I didn't have to do that. And man, I was so happy and I was so grateful that this event did not happen because man, my life would have been drastically changed. Like I wouldn't have the family I have today. I wouldn't have my kids. I wouldn't be, here living in Europe. And man, it's just such an amazing thing. Like you always hope and wish that certain things would happen to you in your life. Like, oh man, I wish like I could get this job or I could hit the lotto. But it's rarely do you ever say like, man, I'm glad that this didn't happen. and it brings me such happiness looking back at situations like this that didn't happen for the betterment of my life. And you know ever since you know this all transpired with my old friend, after I moved and left that city and left this group of friends that I used to kick it with, and life just got exponentially better, and I never looked back. So I say all that to say, like, that is my story. That's a real story. That's my testimony. And you got to be careful with the people you let in your life. As I look back on it now, man, it's like I wish I had more knowledge about people and human nature. I was just too young, too naive to really see that, you know, a couple key people around me just were snakes and were really not good people for me. But I mean, that comes sometimes with wisdom and experience. If you're fortunate enough, you have, older people in your life to tell you these things, right, as you're growing up so that you can identify certain behaviors and patterns in people to just, stay away from them and avoid them. Otherwise, you'll have to go through these things and, find out the hard way, experience it for yourself, which sucks, like I did. But I tell you guys this so that you guys don't make the same mistake and that you don't throw your life away over some bullshit. Because, man, it's so many people in this world that look like me, young black men that just every day just throwing their lives away over nothing, over stupid stuff. And so I just want to tell you guys that I was in a similar situation and I could have made a really stupid decision, but I decided not to. And look at how it turned out, man. The crazy thing too is, I'll finish up here, is that I'm 29 years old, and it's sad because I never expected to live this long. And a lot of black guys never plan or expect to live that long. Like, I mean, what they say, like the average life expectancy of a, black guy is like what, like age 17 to like 21. It's sad that, we don't really value our life like that and that we just be throwing our life away for nothing. I got a couple homies, died at like, 21, 23. And honestly, for a short amount of time when I was younger, I actually was had the mindset that I wanted to die at like 27. Like But then once I got to 27, I'm like, man, what the hell was I thinking, bro? Like life is like even when life sucks, when life like you got so many like obstacles and it's just rough out here. It's like, man, like I don't want to die. Like because it's a possibility that, tomorrow could be better. Like and usually when you look at things, compare like your last 6 months to, now, it's day and night. Man, things get better over time. Like I know you'll struggle, and while you're in that struggle, it'll feel like a really long time, but eventually you'll come out of it. Like it's not the end of the world. I've been through some really gnarly things, and they have all ended. Thank God. But it's like, yo, this storm will go away. Like it's not gonna last forever. And I just wish that a lot more young guys that look like me could know this and could see this. Like, yo, you don't have to do these things. You don't have to throw your life away. It's not cool to go to jail and like be in prison. And it's wild because when I was younger, like 13, 14, it was a couple homies that were older that I looked up to who, like were like in their mid 20s. And then now, man, most of these niggas are dead. And I've lived longer than them. Bro, I'm only 29. Yo, like, this is crazy. And I feel like, man, there's so much more life in me and so much more life to be lived. It's sad when you see people go out so early. But ultimately, it comes down to the decisions that we make every day. So be wise with your decisions and stay safe and be smart, you guys. All right, I'm out. I appreciate y'all listening. Ciao.